coronavirus, riots. Now we're told that there's lynchings happening in public. We're living in the age of fear. And we're back, Mike Cernovich. Cernovich.com, a little red-faced. I was in a meditation retreat. You can see where my face got red. I was in a meditation retreat. The weekend, it was pretty nice. And, spent a lot of time with the universe. Spent a lot of time, thinking about the zeitgeist of our time. And I come back. So I'm away for 48 hours. I come back. And I'm told a guy was shot, sleeping in his car, right? He was just sleeping in his car and he got shot. I was like, oh, that sounds bad. And then, it turns out it's like a little bit different. Then I read that there's lynchings happening. I'm like, okay, sounds bad. And then you do the research, and, an African American was found hanging from a tree. And if you report it that way, it sounds like a lynching, right? You're evoking historical wrongs and historical injustices to get people to reach the wrong conclusion. But did you know that more every day, more than once a day, an African American man commits suicide? Male suicide, super high. White male suicide is super high. 3.5, or white male suicide is way higher than every other group, but male suicide is high, and it happens in the black community. 545 of those suicides are by strangulation. So if you actually look at the data, and I posted it to my Twitter, 545, this was in 2015, and there's been some reporting that studies that the number, if you actually know anything about suicide, which we don't talk about because it's primarily a male issue, the numbers will blow your mind. The first time you learn about suicide, you're like, this can't be true, right? Whenever I post statistics on suicide, people are like, that isn't true, you're wrong. It's like, well, no, this is pretty well studied. We don't really talk about it because it's a man issue. And men are disposable, and when men die, nobody really cares. So it's a male issue, and the rate, again, of white male suicide is 3.5x everyone else, but we're not talking about white male suicide today. We're just talking about 545 black men strangle themselves every year. This was in 2015, and the numbers, I believe, are higher, but we don't have them yet. So 545 a year. How many a week is that, right? You're looking at 10 a week. So they go, oh my God, 5 black men have died from hanging last week. Lynching. Like, no, 545 black men die every year from suicide via strangulation, which means you're going to have 12 or so a week. So you're just not telling the truth. And that's what they do is they don't, hey, Lana, could you get Syra? They don't contextualize, right? They don't know most, they don't contextualize. And now they're creating panic. So now, and the problem I have with this stuff is people read this and they believe it, and now they're living in a state of PTSD. We're living in the nation of PTSD. Because if you read this stuff, there was, I can't remember who did it, but he has a show in the NRA, and he said that before, he's an African-American man, he said before he got involved with the gun rights movement, he really thought that white people were going out hunting black men. He really believed it, and this is a reasonable guy. This is a sensible guy. You're like, wait, you really believe that? So he said, he goes, oh yeah, before I learned about gun rights movement, I just believed everything that white people, it's like, it's just not happening, but people believe it. So you're traumatizing an entire generation of black men, right? You're telling them that there's lynchings happening, and you're not saying, no, actually, suicide is a problem. We should find out why people are committing suicide. We should work on suicide, whatever that looks like. People like Anthony Bourdain commit suicide, and everybody goes, oh yeah, if you're feeling sad, call the suicide hotline. And then that's a Yasher move. Oh, suicide is a bad thing, but then the next day, he's trying to get some woman, destroy her life because of a picture on MySpace, where she's dressed up like Amy Winehouse, but he claims she was being chola, which is a racial term in itself. And you're like, oh, so you care so much about people that when someone is down and out at a professional low, you just pile on, right? So people care about suicide when you can get 10, 15, 20,000 retweets off the back of a celebrity because you go suicide awareness. If you're feeling down, call the 1-800 hotline, retweet for awareness, right? So we should be talking about suicide every day. Did you know half of gun deaths, and sometimes it's more, half or over half of gun deaths often are by suicide? So why are we talking about gun control and gun bans, which ain't going to happen, and not talking about suicide? If you give a shit about people dying from guns, you would say, what's up with the suicides, man? But that never comes out to, oh, Anthony Bourdain killed himself. Oh my God, retweet for awareness. I love people so much. Oh, but then the next day, I'm trying to get you canceled, trying to ruin your life. And then what? Somebody commits suicide. Oh, it's not my fault that, you drove it to him. Not my fault. So you now have PTSD on a national level where you're telling black men that the police are going to kill them, even though when you look at the data, when you look at the actual data, twice as many white people die as blacks. And when you control for police encounters, the risk is actually slightly more for white people. Right? Yeah, suicide is, I know a guy I worked with, he was murdered, and then the guy who murdered him commits suicide. Everybody has a suicide story. Is there anyone here who does not have a suicide story? That's an awkward way of posting the question. Does anyone not have a story? Yes, I do not have a story. Wait, no, I don't have a story. Wait, what? Point is, pretty much everyone here is 1 degree of separation from a suicide. So a good friend of mine I worked with, he got murdered. He and his girlfriend both got murdered by their roommate, and then the roommate committed suicide, right? When I was growing up, a guy hung himself from the playground in the park. And then the problem is if you talk about suicide, it's called suicide contagion. So by debunking the lynching hysteria, I may, in a very tragic way, get more people thinking about suicide and have suicide contagion. So we're in this just mess of a situation. We're just in a mess of a situation where the media wants people to think that they're being lynched, which just isn't true. And so then I'm debunking that by talking about suicide and why it's a problem. But then that can create suicide ideation, and it can create suicide contagion. Right? So we're raising a generation of men to think that police are hunting them, that white people with guns are hunting them, and that now lynching is happening. This is evil. There's no other term other than demonic to describe this. Traumatizing an entire generation of people, and then of course, white people are traumatizing their kids and telling them, oh yeah, you were slave owners. My ancestors were not slave owners. My ancestors were Slavic. Slavic descends from slaves, so where's my reparations? Right? If you're Slavic, that comes from slaves. So now you have a generation of black people being traumatized, being told that they're going to be lynched, killed by police, hunted down by men with guns. Then you have a generation of whites being traumatized, told that they're inherently evil, they're racist, they own slaves, and that if they deny being racist, that's just more proof that they're racist, so they're caught in this Kafka trap, where the more you deny it, the more true it must be. It's generation PTSD. Oh, and then coronavirus. People didn't get to have these coming-of-age moments like their graduation. They came of age. They came of age during Corona. So these coming-of-age events aren't happening. Their summer jobs aren't happening, so their lives are now set back. Generation PTSD. Right? And then you got, generation PTSD. That's where we are, because I look 20 years ahead. I don't look at where we are today. I look at the programming happening now to young people of all races, And we are creating an entire generation with PTSD. Corona PTSD, police trauma PTSD, privilege PTSD, thinking they're lynching PTSD, we'll call it Smollett PTSD. An entire generation now. Generation PTSD. What does a country where everyone has PTSD look like? It's one of hysteria. You can just trigger these people now. The media does it every day now. It's getting better and better and more effective and more effective. Because when people have PTSD, there's something called hypervigilance. Right? Hypervigilance is one of the characteristics of PTSD. And a hypervigilance is you hear a car backfire and you run down because you think it's a bomb. Right? Well, the same is true all across your mind, which is you're not trusting anyone. You can't trust anyone. One person does one little thing and you think that person's going to kill me. Right? Everybody becomes a paranoid schizophrenic. A real one, not where people are like, oh, you changed your mind, you must be, schizophrenic. Real, where your mind is completely like, I don't know what's real, what's not. I don't know if I can trust anyone, who I can trust. That's why you're seeing more and more and more and more and more. More and more and more and more and more. Somebody said missing a graduation is traumatic. Well, I'm blocking you because you don't understand anything. You're too stupid to be here. I don't have time for stupid people, right? I don't have time for people who don't get it and they want to argue but they don't know anything. Go read a book. So PTSD, generation-wide, is happening, and we're going to see that play out. More crime, a less stable society, a lower trust society, a completely destroyed society is what we're facing. Because, I can't trust anybody, that guy might do this. People, living in paranoia. Everybody's going to be a Karen, because that's, the Karens, we laugh at them, but most of the time we shouldn't. These are broken people, right? So we're with the Karen problem is like, they're broken people, but they hurt other people too. So what do you do with people who are broken, but they're harming others? You need to, because they have trauma, they have PTSD from their own lives. They didn't end up like that naturally. They didn't end up as Karens because they lived a healthy childhood and had a stable nuclear family and had healthy relationships. That's not how they ended up like that. People who grew up in a healthy home environment, have healthy relationships, aren't harmed or hurt by other people, they don't end up like Karen. Karens are PTSD. So we now have everyone telling them that the society's hurting you, the people that you live with in the country hate you, everyone hates you, there's going to be another crime, the police are going to kill you, so every time you're pulled over, now you're hypervigilant. And if you're hypervigilant, you don't respond to prompts. That's the issue of what we call it summoning the demon in persuasion, where what you are most afraid of is what arises. What you are most afraid of is what you summon. So if you say, I'm afraid that I'm not good enough, I'm so afraid of that, well, you will become not good enough because that's where you focus your mind and that's what you manifest as your energy. So imagine you think the police and you don't look at the stats and you don't know anything and you're just driving and you get pulled over. You're like, I might die right now. And if you're thinking, I might die right now, your brain goes into what? Fight, flight, freeze. It's a myth. It's a myth that the adrenal system is fight or flight. You either fight or you run away. No, there's also freeze. So a lot of people, when they're traumatized, and they have this PTSD from the media-induced PTSD, then they pull over, freeze. They don't know what to do. Deer in the headlights. What do you do? Can I see your license and registration? What's going on? Right? Maybe they black out. Maybe they disappear. Maybe they can't talk. Oh, so now they're in their car in a frozen position because of media-induced PTSD. They think they might get killed right now. So what happens now? The officer's like, oh God, is this guy drunk? Is he high? He's acting erratically. So then the officer's like, sir, you're acting erratically. You need to get out of the car. And now you're creating this like cycle. Right? Now you're creating this cycle. Because there had actually been a lot of police, before there was more training, a lot of diabetics got killed by the police. Do you know why that is? So before police were properly trained, there were lots of cases where diabetics were killed by police. Can you answer? There's a right answer for this. Why were so many diabetics killed by police? Right? They were non-responsive. When you're in ketoacidosis, your breath smells like alcohol, right? So diabetic would pull over, their blood sugar would crash, they didn't have the proper insulin dose. Low blood sugar, they pull over, they're like this in the car, and they're breathing out, right? They're in ketoacidosis, so they're breathing out ketones. So the ketones sound like, or the ketones smell like alcohol, so the police pull over, oh, this person's drunk, and they're dragging them out of there, taking them to the police station, and then the person goes into diabetic shock and dies. This happened all the time. All the time. Police had to be properly trained on how to recognize this person in diabetic shock, right? Most people don't know this, right? And fucking reporters who report on this don't know this. I know everything about police misconduct, better than anyone reporting it. That's also why I support abolishing qualified immunity, but that's a different subject. I love police, but qualified immunity has been stretched way, way too far, to the point where you can get away with really egregious conduct. But I'll do a separate periscope on that. Yeah, so diabetics have been killed. So what do police do? What's the solution? What's the way forward? Right? You're way off on this, but you're blocked. How about that? Nobody cares what you think. So what's the way forward? Because that's how we always want to think. Well, the way forward is, de-escalation. Police are trained in the academy. You could die anytime you leave. That's how they're trained. So they're jacked up. They're told every time you go and do a traffic stop, you might die. That's the fundamental operating principle. You might die, right? So, one, that you have to do better training than that. Because now you're instilling PTSD in police. You're like, look, anytime you knock on the door, you might die. So now the police have PTSD. And then the people they're pulling over have media-induced PTSD. So now you're just dealing with people who aren't operating on full rational faculties, right? And then, of course, we should have fewer crimes, so there should be fewer stops. So all this speed traps and all this bullshit the towns do for revenue generation is part of the problem too. So if you really want to do a wholesale reform of it, police traps, speed traps would be over. You just train police, quit harassing people, quit just trying to hit your ticket quota. We all know they have quotas. Quit acting like you don't have ticket quotas. Focus on real crime. If there's no real crime happening, great. Because in my hometown there is no real crime, so the police would just follow you. They would follow you everywhere. And sometimes they'd shine their brights on you, try to get you to like swerve over the center line, and then boop, 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 you swerved over the center line. Because there's no real crime. So if you're a police officer and there's no real crime, how about you just say, this is great. I'm just going to go to the gym today and chill out, read a book. Stop harassing people. My hometown, 17 police officers for 13,000 people, and all they did was harass people. You can say there's no such thing as quotas, but you get talked to if you don't have enough tickets. So don't lie, dude. Don't try to give me that spin. You're talking to a pro police officer person who also understands civil rights law better than maybe all but 10 people in the entire country. And I could just prove that with any kind of knowledge or quiz test. Easily. I'll go up against any law professor, any expert you talk about. So there's no quotas. Oh, there's no you mean, but if you don't do any tickets, do you get talked to? Do you meet your supervisor? Hey, so we noticed that, this guy, he had a lot of traffic stops, and I noticed that you haven't had many stops today. You only had a few stops this month. Everybody else had more stops. Is everything okay? Right, so that's the lie. It's not a quota. So you're blocked because you're dishonest. You're just an idiot, right? But that's what they do. Well, there's no quotas. Well, they don't put it in writing. Doesn't mean there's no quota. You get a talking to. Hey, we noticed there aren't a lot of stops here, and other people, they're doing 50 stops a week, and you're doing 12 stops a week, or da 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 da. That's how they create their quotas, and they go, well, there's no quota. We're not saying you have to do X, Y, and Z. No, but you'll just get a talking to if you don't do it, right? Yeah, unwritten laws, unwritten rules. Culture. Culture is an invisible operating system, right? Where you just get it. So that's the whole point, just dummies. Oh, there's no quotas. They're quotas. State Cop wrote a book exactly what you're saying. Right, when I talk, I speak with authority and authoritativeness because I've been in this issue. I've been in this world. I'm not like, they're just not. That's why I can speak with such nuance and elaborate in ways that no one else can. Because I know right away, oh, there's no quotas, and then I can explain how the quota system works. Because I'm not like, oh, there's no quotas. I've never heard this argument before. So yeah, how about if there's no crime, police just go, hey, there's no crime, this is great. No, but they're tax collectors. They've been deputized as tax collectors, and most police officers didn't want to be deputy tax collectors. People go into policing for two reasons. One, love of their community, they want to help people. Two, they want to drive fast and carry a gun. Now there's 3, 4, 5, 6. It's a good job with benefits, government pension, da-da-da-da. But the primary psychological motivations are, one, love a community, they want to help people. Two, they want to drive fast and carry a gun. Nobody says, I want to be a deputy tax man. They would join the IRS. Right? Nobody's like, I'm going to go in the police academy because I want to pull people over for bullshit and raise revenue for my corrupt local government. No police officer says that. They would go join the IRS, right? They would join the IRS. So everybody is spun up now. Police are spun up. Anybody could die at any day. Lynching's happening. Police are killing everyone. So everyone's spun up. Everyone has PTSD. And then the police now are being attacked. So now the police are spun up. That's why, like, that 75-year-old guy gets knocked over. Like, why'd that happen? What was he doing walking towards them? They're just supposed to be like, hey, sir. And then what if they had said, think about this, right? Because this is empathy. Empathy is you don't have to agree with a person, but you understand how they felt. That's all empathy is. There are people that I empathize with that I still think belong in prison, right? But I still have empathy. So imagine you're a police officer. A white man comes at you and is like shoving at you and waving his hands at you. Okay, if you soft paddle him, you're now racist, right? If you say, oh, hi, sir, you have to, even though you're in a line, so he's breaching formation, hey, sir, come over here. Then they'll say, look, when a white man goes up to the police, nothing happens. Racist. So if they do nothing, they're racist. If they warn him, hey, bro, you need to get out of the way, dude, and they don't, and they lean into him, and he falls down, now they're murderers, right? Well, the guy didn't die, but so now they're, now they're criminals. So they didn't do anything, they're racist, they're going to be fired because they're treating white people better than everyone else. They run into the guy because he's in their space, breaking their formation. Now they're murderers or, whatever they're called. Or Antifa learns a new tactic. Hey, if you want to break the police line, send an old guy up there as bait, and then the police will move aside from him, and now you broke the line. But just think this through. So I don't think the police officer should have shoved him. I don't think it was handled appropriately. But I know where they were coming from. I know that they had to make a split-second decision. I can't tell you that I wouldn't have made the same decision. I don't know who this fucking guy is. And the fact that this guy came through, the fact that this guy's coming at me, what's he up to? And then I saw a video beforehand where one of the actual Black Lives Matter organizer, who was a black man, said to the old guy, leave the police alone. Who saw that video? Yes or no? Yes or no? Did you see the video where a young black man who organized the event told the old white man, knock it off, we have a deal with the police? Of course you didn't see the video. Of course you didn't. Right? Some of you did, which is good. Half of you didn't. And you read Cernovich and Jack Posobiec. You're high information people. Half of you didn't see it, and you're in the top 10% of everybody who knows the news. If you read Posobiec, Cernovich, a few others, you are in the top 10%, maybe top 1% of all news people. You didn't, and over half of you didn't see the video. So in the video, black man says to the old white man, hey, we got a good thing going with the police. Everything's cool. Everything's chill. Don't go over there. Don't go over there. Right? Shauna's here, henpecking me from Periscope, publicly cucking me. Unbelievable. 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 It's called passion. I'm a passionate person. So, most of you who are high information news consumers, news readers, don't know that a young black man, Black Lives Matter advocate, Ali posted that video too. You read Ali, you're informed. Y'all don't even know this happened. So the young black man said to the old white man, hey, I almost blocked Shauna, this is true. Then she'd come out and it'd be a scene, you know. So young black man tells the old white guy, hey, everything with the police is chill. We have a deal with them. Just don't antagonize them. And then the quote was, he's trying to get hit. The black man said, the young black man who was actually organizing the event said to the old white man, you're trying to get hit. But that doesn't get reported. All that gets reported is, can you believe the police just ran into him? Whereas if you showed the full video, you're like, that was an agent provocateur. Right? Here's the idea. If you're a 75-year-old white guy and a 20-year-old black man who organized the event says, hey, dude, we have a thing with the police. We talked to them. I think you're causing trouble. Stay away from the police. And then you posted that full video. People would be like, oh, wow, that's interesting. Interesting. So he was trying to antagonize them. Right? And then, of course, that all gets buried because it doesn't create the narrative. So now people think that old people are just being attacked by the police. No one is safe. So we are. It'll be a good book. If there's no book title like this already, a good book would be Generation PTSD. Because everyone under 20, maybe 25, either has PTSD or they're going to have PTSD because they're being told now that they're being lynched, that the police are going to kill them. White people are told that they're garbage and they own slaves and that they're evil. Kids are being brought to protest. There are pictures of kids with like ropes around their neck being carried by their parents, which if you ask me is pedophile behavior. That's child sexual predator behavior. And if I saw somebody walking with his own kids and they had the kids with those collars on, like walking them around and stuff, I would definitely assume that parent was some kind of predator, because that's predatory stuff. You don't even do that with your wife, and maybe some people do, but putting a leash on a kid, which is what some of these white people are doing, that's child sexual predation. There's no other way to put it. And so that's what you're doing. So kids are now being raised like that. What's the antidote? The antidote is live not by fear. The answer is don't be a fear monger. That's why I don't do the hysteria that, some people do. That's why my approach is a little bit different. And don't fall for the lies yourself, right? Love is the answer, my friends. All right, battery's about to die. Love is the answer. Human connection is the answer. People are angry because they're not connected to each other, and they're not connected to God. The further away we get from each other is the further away we get from God. That's how you know this is demonic energy. Those who want to divide, those who want to pull us apart, those are the ones trying to bring us away from God. Those are the demons. Thanks for watching. Mike Cernovich, CERNOVICH.com.